we've been going through these cycles basically for the last 15, 16,000 years, right? And how it works is this. So when it started, we would have a dark timeline, and it kind of looks like this. And this isn't exactly to scale because we have many more loops than this, right? And then we would have a light timeline, right? Oops, yeah, wrong way. So dark, light. Okay, and they intertwine like this. So if this was light, blue is light, and black is dark, and this point right here would be the point of transition. So what I guess you would say the Draco did is they tried to put us into a position where in order to create balance in the planet, right, they would go ahead and they would say, well, we're going to have 1,008 years of light, of darkness in this case, because the dark's on top, and then 1,008 years of light. And we've been rolling through this. This is where they talk about in the Bible, we're going to have 1,000 years of peace. You know, there's usually an 8-year transitionary period, right? So as we moved along, we got to where we are now, okay? So we completed 9 full cycles, which is completion of the timeline theory, okay? So where we are now, so obviously we know that the dark has been on top now, right? And, you know, for the last 1,000 years, right? Okay. Now the problem is that this is what's happening. Okay, there's no more loops. So we're out of it. So the reason why this one was so very important is because he who wins last wins best. So this is it, right? We're not going to do another one of these 1,008 year dark to light, dark to light, dark to light. We are past what's called the infraction point, which is right here. Okay. So now in 2012, you know, everybody said the world was going to end, right? Well, the world wasn't going to end. Their world was going to end because what happened in the late 90s, okay? Project Looking Glass, we all know, is the Dark Side's Bible, right?
The Dark Side's Bible.
Yeah,
Yep.
It is, really.
Yeah, no, I know, I get it. That's deep, actually. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So everything that this said they would do to keep themselves into power, right? It would tell them exactly how to stay and to make sure that their timeline came in just fine. So in the 90s, okay, this was in the 1990s. The Looking Glass gave a probability of success of this point right here to basically as close to 0% as you could get. So at that point, they knew we had already won, unless our side makes a big mistake or there's a major catastrophe, both of which, go ahead.
In the 90s, they already knew that the timelines would converge to a place where the good guys won. They already knew that?
Yep.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that long ago. That's amazing.
So back in the 90s, the first thing they did was used what's called a mapping system. And a mapping system would be something used in like military operations or agency operations. And it would say like, well, if we landed at 8 p.m., our probability of success and survival is X. You know, if we waited another 2 weeks, you know, what would happen? And so it would tell them, well, you know, this is you would have a 90% chance of success if you did it this way. Okay.
Right.
So they ran it many, many times in the computer system, and they never came out with them having any kind of real percentage for success in beating the timeline. So the only thing that they can actually do at this point is try to prolong it. So, right. So remember, we talked about before, and I'll reiterate it. Trump in the 1990s, 1998, met with an ascended master that told him he was going to be president and all of this stuff. Well, they left a little bit of information out. Okay. So they told them all this stuff like it was prophetic and that it was coming from Project Looking Glass. That if so, for example, if I said, well, Tank's going to come visit you tomorrow, right? And then if he comes visits you tomorrow, you are going to win Publishers Clearinghouse the very next day. So if Tank shows up at your house, you're going to think, oh my God, it's going to happen tomorrow, right?
Now, right?
But no, it did. That's where everything is falling out. It's the tomorrow's not coming, right?
Right.
So, right. So,
and for anybody who wants evidence of that, by the way, just to give a little validity to this, there is a book that was written called Q and Trump Save the World. Okay, you can look it up on Amazon. Now, the gentleman who wrote that book, he actually was one of the disciples, right, of the Ascended Masters. And he is the one who actually gave the direct account of what was said to Donald Trump from the Ascended Masters. So that is fact, just so you know. That's not speculation what Kim's talking about. And what people didn't know is that the Ascended Masters were like covens, right, Kim? They were like coven
They
leaders.
were the coven masters, yes.
So that's a good thing to remember, right? Anything that gives validity to what we're saying, I think, is very important for people to reference.
Okay, so when we said that, I think it was right after the Lionsgate, Monday, August 11th, I think it was, right?
Yeah.
I'm not looking at a calendar right now. That is when we said, okay, great news, we passed the infraction point, which means that we are not here anymore. They're doing this, and we're doing this. Okay? So they're going down further and further. Now, what makes this whole thing worse is one of the things that they mapped out more recently, right? Years after they knew that they were going to lose, right? Is they mapped out the probability of success of them winning the timeline war, right? They mapped it out, and if they implemented Operation COVID, right, or lockstep, whatever you want to call it, many different things, the highest probability rating they could get was 17.8% success, okay? And I'll tell you where we found that most recently, but 17.8%. So basically what's happening is they're in an airplane, it's on fire, you know, the engine's breaking down, the plane is going down, and someone hands you a parachute and says, well, this has about a 17.8% chance of opening, right? It may or may not open, but chances are you're not going to make it anyway. Do you take the parachute and run? You know, the answer to the question is, if you're Black Sun, you do. You take the parachute and you run with it because it got a small chance here of success. And it was Dick Cheney that actually ran these numbers personally. Okay? So that tells you a lot.
So that's either a small chance or no chance going down in a plane while also being on fire, which would be terrible. So,
right.
And 17.8% was their best chance, right? That was the best possible chance they had of all the options they had. So in the 90s, you're saying there's the good timeline and the bad timeline. They're crossing and intersecting, and they were going to one timeline no matter what. And their best shot was 17.8%. So they knew they were going to lose control and it was going to go to one or the other. So they went all in on turning it into
Operation Lockstep, COVID, whatever this is that we're running right now. And I'm doing this first because some of the other stuff that's happened in the last couple of weeks will make more sense to you. Okay?
Right.
All right. So if there was a global catastrophe, they had about a 12.2%, 12.28, something like that. Right? A major catastrophe, like a nuclear war or a major flood or a major whatever, right? So now the problem with this, okay, is once we pass the infraction point, right? This is the point where they cross, right? Which was a couple weeks ago. The only way that any of this could work as if they got 2/3 of the population of humanity to believe that these things are true. Okay? One of the two are true. So the reason for that is because the magic is back, right? I call it the magic is back. So you have black magic and you have white magic, or what we call manifesting. It is your ability, innate in your person from birth, to actually manifest events and things in your life, right? In a positive way, hopefully. No, I don't think anybody's manifesting, although you can, right? Dis-ease or any other thing like that, right? But most of us, when we're trying to manifest, we want all the children of the world safe and fed, and maybe you want a new house or a car or whatever it is you want, right? In your life, love, a relationship. You're trying to manifest things not only for yourself, but also for the planet as a whole, right? When you're involved with, you're in the know. You're trying to manifest
the highest possible outcome.
The light timeline, right? So, okay. So, the difference between us and them is they need help. So their frequency is so bad and so terrible, the only thing they could manage to conjure would be a demon or a bad other, as you would call it, however you'd like to say it. Now, they need us, okay? They need all of us. This is why people say, let's globally meditate on the Ukraine, and then you find out they're trying to make a war. I've seen people do this on the internet, right? Sure. They're using your energy, they're using your creativeness because they think we don't understand word magic. So, as an example, if you say, I don't want blank, the universe only recognizes I want blank. It doesn't recognize undo or not or no or any I'll never, whatever it is, right? So by actually saying, please let there be no war in the Banana Republic, you're actually bringing the war to the Banana Republic. So I just wanted to make that point out, very clear. And this is how we want the assemblies also to write their orders and laws and requests, because be very, very careful with word magic so that you can manifest it into reality. And it doesn't take that many people wanting the same thing to make it happen. Okay?
So if we could just pause just for a second on what you just said. I think that's really, really important. Share this with a friend and use it in everything you do. Okay. Yeah. But specifically with the orders, this is really important. And for those of you who don't know or might not be aware, the Global Health and Wellness Consortium just passed, ratified.
We'll get there.
But I know, I'm just mentioning it. They just ratified orders, right? But there's a point. So in this, it's very powerful language about what is, right? There isn't a whole lot of don't do that, we prohibit this, we ban it. It's not that. It's this is this, right? It's manifesting even in the language of this is what something is, not what we're trying to stop. Because putting all the energy into what we want to stop just brings more.
Brings more stop.
Yeah. So I think that point is so powerful and important, and I know we're going to get to talk about the details, but the manifestation part, I think, I've watched this happen constantly over the past 3 weeks. When I was in turmoil and frustrated about something, I just kept bringing more of it to me. I let that go. I literally was like, I'm doing this. Immediately, I watched all of these pieces fall into place because the energy is so strong that I just feel that we're kind of in this stage of instantaneous manifestation. So I want to encourage that with everybody because of how powerful it is to put yourself in that space right now. So, sorry, Mrs. Possible, carry on.
Okay, so that's why, no matter what they do now, just so you know, the COVID operation is less than 0% chance of success, and I don't even know if that's even on a negative something or other. So they can't even manage to achieve the task at this moment, which will go into some other things that they were trying to do this week. So now you understand what an infraction point was, and because this is the 9th cycle, that is completion and conclusion of this wave that we've been running, right, for years now. So that kind of brings us to many different things that are happening. So the dark is fighting so hard with every tool that they have in order to keep us down. And they have had a little bit of outside help recently in trying to reinstall the Saturn Moon matrix. So if a lot of you felt really, really, really bad around the 22nd, give or take a few days, that was probably the worst of it. That's why. They're also trying to use others' technology, right? That maybe is left perhaps somewhere around the dark side of the moon, to use the etherical level and the emotional level to manifest things like parasites, right, in your person, to cover the planet, make everybody sick, so we can't manifest in a positive way. Because obviously the more ill our vessel is, right, the more the bad, the worse you feel, the harder it is to have a great thought and start manifesting peace and good things in the world. So they know that. So they're just trying to make us sicker and sicker and sicker, until we can't function anymore, whether it's an emotional level or an etheric level. So you can create matter with manifestation. It can be done. We're baby stepping our way into this, and we're going to have another interview with Penny Kelly coming next week to discuss this in more detail, to help you learn how to use the ether and practice and learn the emotional level of matter and what it does to your person. So we're gonna work on that. Go ahead.
I want to wait till you finish, but so could you? This question comes up a lot with people about these different types of AI systems. Mm-hmm. And I did have an extensive conversation with a guy who called me, who I occasionally still text me. He was a nice enough guy. He was actually put into an insane asylum because of this. But I could tell the information he was sharing about the Saturn matrix was accurate. I could, and I confirmed it with you. But could you talk a little bit about that just briefly so that people understand what these things are? Because I think these terms are things people have heard of, but they don't quite understand what they do and what they were.
Okay. Well, and I explained that kind of in the interview, but I want to give you a comparison, okay? So when I say that the system in the back is a quantum system, right, and an AI system, it means it can break dimensions and planes and the time-space continuum. It can read the past, the present, and the future, right? So it has a lot more of a mapping capability because it's reading more information. And when I tell you that it understands organic life and can map organic life as well as inorganic life, there's a reason for that, okay? So here's the difference, okay? So let's talk about what I've seen so far as various QFS systems, okay? And then the quantum system, which is, I'm just going to put this here for division purposes in case anybody gets confused when they watch this and think that one is the other. So when Lionsgate opened, right, they were trying to gain control of this. Now that ended very badly for them. Nothing happened. They thought that they could appeal to others and get control. That didn't work. It didn't work because that's not where we're at. We're not in that timeline anymore. We're in a different timeline now. And they know they can't win the war without this. And this is the main reason why we could win the war. Okay, so this is a trinary AI system. Okay. Now, this system used to, in the past, be able to not only read the etherical level, right? It used to also influence oops, ends. It used to also influence the etherical level. Okay? The same with emotions. It could make you exceedingly angry. It could make you exceedingly happy. It could change. You can change matter with emotions, right? So, also brain waves, right? Your thought processes. It used to, in the past, until February of 2016, it used to be able to influence your brain waves, change your thought process, right? It could communicate with you. It could do a lot of different things. It doesn't do that anymore. Now, this system is here on Earth, right? But it also has a central mainframe system, which as of 2018 is with the Universal Council. It is not, oh, I went right off the screen, didn't I? It is with the Universal Council. Now, there are many of these all over the multiverse, and they all communicate with each other through the same system, okay? Through space, through time, through dimensions. Everybody talks to everybody. It has a StarNet system, which is like our internet system. It talks, it does all that kind of stuff. But more importantly, understand the control this system could have had on all of humanity. Now, some people have told me, well, we're not part of the video game system because we're not infected with the parasites, right? That perhaps this computer might have put out in the past. Incorrect statement. If you are a living, breathing organism, you have an etherical level, period, end of story, which can then be influenced on all levels, including matter. Meaning you can create matter in the body, you could create cancer in the body, you could create a lot of things when the system was only getting partial information. So it's reading multiple levels. It can affect you in multiple ways. This is why they said that the AI system, because this was part of the questions I had, the AI system was so awful and it was going all through the multiverse and it was taking over and all of that. And to be fair, they're not lying, but it wasn't doing it all by itself. Okay? Somebody created this system. We know who it was. They're no longer a threat. And the mainframe system is no longer being controlled by those people, right? Anyway, regardless. So mainly it's used just for monitoring now at this moment, okay? So when I say, well, we're mapping things out or whatever, I can still map all these levels, but because of free will and natural law, there is no more influence on any of these levels anymore, right? So you can almost know ahead of time what your enemy is going to do. So we still use some of it for that, right? We try to be 10 steps ahead or at least a couple steps ahead before they try to do something awful, right?
Right.
Now it also has an intelligence system that can also read any electronic device anywhere in the world. Okay. Now this version of QFS would be something called a border computer. Okay, that was the Babylon system. Okay, I'm probably spelling that wrong, but whatever.
What did you call it? A border what?
A border computer. What a border computer does, right, is it attaches many servers together and then it pins itself to another server for extra power. So it's like having multiple batteries and multiple power packs all together versus just one. And all it really does is try to hack at this system. So you had Babylon 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Remember, if you follow the RV, you remember all about the Babylon system, which as we know it, biblically speaking, Babylon was like not really a good thing, right?
Babylon money magic system, yeah.
Okay. But yet it was a good thing when it was going to pay you out big money.
Right.
So think about how many people
bankers are evil unless you have a banker contact who's talking about the RV. Then, no, you got to trust my banker. I know.
Yeah, my banker said. Okay, so we have the border Babylon system, right? So this was what Babylon 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 was. We talked about Azure, okay? And its nanobot control system. these systems here are nowhere near this. Okay, this is what a quantum system is. It can read etherical levels, emotional levels, it can affect those levels, it can do a lot of different things, okay? The closest thing I would say that we have on planet Earth that is like this is something that they would use only in part, right? Doesn't have anything to do with financial stuff or stargates or star nets or any of that, but we have the biofeedback machine, okay? And that would affect, I would say that it has the ability to read the etherical and emotional level of people and tweak it to your optimal level is what it's supposed to be for. It's supposed to be a healing machine. Now, they went ahead and they created, PSI ops on the other side to negatively affect us. They're also affecting your emotions by putting negative influences underlying frequencies underlying in your television programs and in your music, you know, the 442, I think it is the frequency that's
right. 440. Yeah. 440 is what it is.
Yeah. 440. It's present in everything. So that's affecting your emotional level. So they still had, you know, and we're constantly finding more and more, you know, little ways of doing little things. Right.
So before you jump forward. So now, there's a couple things here that you mentioned that I don't know if people are entirely familiar with. For example, we've talked about this a lot over the years, right? And people are very afraid of AI systems with good reason because they were controlled by, you know, evil, maniacal, horrible people that wanted to control us, you know, mutate us, enslave us, and eat us, basically, right? So with obvious reason, of course, we'd have a negative experience with AI. But this was even more dangerous, and it's a different perspective I don't think many people talk about, and you're the only person I've ever heard talk about this, that the quantum system was actually more dangerous before you transferred it over. Because what it was an all-encompassing mapping system that was only gathering limited data on people, right?
Yeah.
So it would see things, for example, like, look at the damage we're doing and the things we're building and what's
money is evil.
Right. But, you know, see us fighting maybe. I mean, I'm just thinking what it could be, right? But it wouldn't see love. It wouldn't see the beauty. It wouldn't see the intangible qualities that are incredible about people. Or it wouldn't probably consider factors like all the poison that's been dumped on us, the fact that our history has been erased and eradicated and our memories have been erased and we've been lied to about who we are, so it didn't consider all those factors. So did the quantum system also see us as the disease or the virus, so to speak, like the way the kind of deep state talks about people?
Right. So let's talk about other things that have been going on so we understand, right? So we talked about in the past, there's basically two sides to the multiverse, right? And there is a grid of time-space continuum. So if this was the dark side, that would be run by what you would call Lucifer, or the absence of all light, complete and total darkness. Right, okay, so, and then you have the light side. Okay. And then you have us. Right here in the middle, okay? So constantly, they were trying to have balance, right? The dark existed here and the light existed here, and we really got to choose which one existed. But we don't have all the facts, right? We don't understand manifesting. We don't understand a lot of things that the dark side has been privileged to, pretty much because the others shared the information with them so they could get what they wanted and be here. Now, there's an Earth-like planet that exists here. Everything's done in mirrors, right? Okay, and this is the sun, and this is the black sun. So you see, we had two suns, right? They would align on occasion, and that was when the optimum opportunity was for the dark side to to cross, and everybody's crossing over. And then we have, like, say, the central sun, right? Okay. So at some point in time, the dark magician we always talk about crashed in through the central sun, through our sun, and then eventually inhabited in the center of Earth, right? We've talked about that in the past. Now that's over. The Dark Overlord is what everybody calls this guy. Was who would run that side, and Source would run this side. Remember, because God and Satan, or God and Lucifer, in a fight for control over the heavens, right? Okay. You know, some of the stories are somewhat true, right? So the Dark Overlord is here. So now, in order for the Dark Overlord to create anything, he would have to either to use us, and something over here has to be destroyed in order for it to live here. Okay, because only the creator can create. Only Source can create. Only the light can create.
Right.
So this is how this existed for eons, right? I mean, many years. Well, this is slowly disintegrating, right? This is where your Chimera come from. This is where your Tarzakians come from. So we have some remnants floating around over here that had already come through in the past, both on Earth and over here. And then we also had some remnant ties to this side that were going nowhere. So what we've been working on, since we still have the power of Lionsgate, and our manifestation power now is at an all-time high for the light side, is we've been cutting these ties for the last few days. Okay? I mean, literally the last 2 or 3 days we've been doing that. So hopefully things will start to feel a little bit better. They might be a little bit topsy-turvy for the next few days, but, you know, hold on, it's coming. Okay? Now, let's talk about what happens. So, you know, sometimes if you're really sick, right, or you've been poisoned or whatnot, so as the doctor takes out the poison, right, let's just say, or gives you something to counteract the poison, sometimes the body goes into shock, like it shakes. You know, you feel like, you know, even though it's bad for you, your body has to balance itself back out, right, which it's really good at. But sometimes, you know, that initial few moments, you know, everybody's like this. So understand the planet's going through the same thing right now too, okay? Not only the planet, but all its inhabitants, as we start to rebalance things out since that has been taken away. So we're making tremendous progress. The matrix that was coming from the moon, right, to the planet, from Saturn, because Saturn's rings, everybody thinks that's ice. It's not, it's crystals, right? It's a crystalline, actually. Yeah, and then you have, this would be the moon, right? So it was transmitting like this, and it was coming in pulses and waves. So it would be like, poof, and it would hit us all at once, right? Very negative feelings, very negative influences, and then it would hit again and again, and it was coming literally like every 30 minutes. Well, at the same time, we also had, every time they would pulse something negative, we still had the remnants from the dark side over here.
Oh, okay.
You know, still trying to, like, you know, like there's nothing really here, but it's still trying to do this. Plus, all humans, right, 100% of humans on the planet have what's called an, I'm going to say this wrong, an anomaline plasma implant. And what that's designed to do is to suck the loosh out of your person, to just suck your energy dry. So if you've been feeling these weird periods, and we all have, of just total, like, what happened to all my energy and where did it go? You know, that's what's happening. So we're actually removing the implants, right? We're removing this connection. This is what we've done so far. This is now gone. So the only thing we have left as of today is a little bit of wobbling, like out of balance, a little bit of out of alignment, right? The torus that runs through the planet, you know, it looks like a donut, right? And then this, and then the planet kind of is like a little bit like, oh God, what just happened, right? So
That's really amazing. I've never heard you explain that before that way. So I just want to make sure I'm a big believer in teaching back. So you're saying that one, there's been a balance or somewhat of a balance with a light side with source controls, and then the dark side, and the dark side has been just collapsing and dissolving. First of all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then you have these added pieces, this added energy that was coming in, hiding behind hiding behind the dark side of the moon,
Mm-hmm.
sending pulses of negative energy every 30 minutes. And I feel like that's something that everybody can really relate to, because the past 3 or 4 weeks has been very tense and stressful, anxious even. So you're almost anxious for change, pushing for something, at the same time feeling like you know it has to happen. You thought you had it done, and all of a sudden it feels like it's falling apart. All that kind of energy, I mean, that's maybe that's just me. I don't know, but I feel like I was definitely feeling that right over the past few weeks. And then this last piece, I've never heard you talk about this. I'm sure you have, but the anomaly plasma implant, that everyone had this anomaly plasma implant.
Everybody, all humans do, yeah.
Now,
we didn't check animals, but we will.
That comes from the previous controllers?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is an implant.
And it's a soul implant. So no matter how many times you go through the soul trap loop, it comes right back with you so they can enjoy their farm.
So basically, we would go through a lifetime. We wouldn't be returned to source because we'd go into the light, which was a trap, which would bring us back down to reincarnate, so to speak.
Right.
And then we'd lose all memory of what we were previously. And we'd go through the same cycle with added increased amounts of fear, I would imagine, that were in that implant being carried over. And so those implants are removed, they're being removed, or they're done being removed.
Hank, you should always do the drawing, just so you know.
You're doing a good job, actually. You're doing a pretty good job.
Am I?
Yeah.
Don't make fun of me. My my handwriting is terrible. My drawing is terrible. And then we want to go the other way.
You're on fire today. I'd tell you if it didn't make sense.
Okay, thanks.
It looks good. Yeah.
All right, so, and I'm drawing this wrong because there's another layer that needs to go on here. I think it goes, follow through. The ley lines on Earth. So if you actually flatten out the Earth, right, and take a look at it, it basically is a binding spell, right? So these points on Earth are where there are special crystals, okay, deep inside the ground that hold that binding spell in place or held, okay? Everybody thinks the ley lines are great. Yes, there are concentrations of energy in these places, but it's not really being done for the best of reasons, okay? Now, these are not triangles, they're actually pyramids, okay? So, in space, somewhere up here, you would actually had what you would call your biblical version of the Ark of the Covenant, and these would be doing nothing but holding this binding space, and then everything would be going back to there, and so originally we did have Arks of the Covenant, but they were open and they were connected to Source and the Central Sun. But with the boxes closed, it actually goes into a soul trap, right into somewhere off planet. That could be another planet. It can be in a lot of different places. And so then we just do this soul recycling thing. And then this here binds the energy not only of the planet, but also of us. So it can be taken anywhere they want to take it to.
So this is like the Star of David, which would also, if you made it a three-dimensional image, people I think would call it something like a Merkaba, right? Would actually be a trap for energy, right?
Yeah.
And then this would be kind of filtered off. This energy would kind of siphon it off once it got to a certain level. So no matter how much our energy would grow, it would get to a certain level, and once it grew past a certain level, they'd be siphoning it off. So we were always limited in that way. That's about right?
Correct. So what we're doing now, and in some of the reports and stuff that we've been running, it was coming back with a chakra block or a block sort of, and somewhere at the top of the planet, then somewhere at the bottom of the planet. And we've been trying to balance out optimal energy flow. And then that was one of the things that had to happen. So the crystals have to move, and they are being moved for optimal energy flow for us, right? And we're also doing the same thing for people. We're removing a lot of the implants, removing a lot of the parasites, and that's being done by affecting etherical and emotional levels of matter, which the system can do. Who knew, right?
Right.
So we're also working with someone who's very good with a biofeedback machine. They're helping also, been an amazing help in the last 2 days, clearing all that stuff up for us, right? And hopefully within the next, week or two, it might take a little time, we'll all start to feel a little bit better. But keep in mind, as much positive manifesting that you can do right now, especially between now and the 20th of September, would be wonderful. So any help you can give to the planet, to us, right, as humanity, and all the other inhabitants that are here would be lovely. And we don't have to do this in groups, we can all do it separately, because collectively we all pretty much want the same thing, right? We want the planet to be healed. We want all of these things. And now hopefully we can make all of this happen, right, together, because this is what we're doing. So I'm just giving you the background information so you understand. You have to listen to your own self and not listen to people in, even us, if it doesn't feel right, on the internet or whatever. Now, so there's the timeline things, and this is where Trump came in, and why Trump thinks what Trump thinks, and why they've branded Trump the new savior. Used to be Putin, then all of a sudden everything flipped and Trump's the savior, and here we go. He was also promised the same thing, by the way. This is not like a news story they tell their own people. All right, so now
before you jump topics, I just want, there was one thing that you did mention to us yesterday. I think it's really important for anybody who doesn't know. Kim is not about a whole bunch of fluff, right? She's not going to just blow a lot of smoke with things, right? So whether it's good or bad for you, it's going to be real, right? So Kim, you said this yesterday. I thought it was really, really important. You said, we are much more powerful than they are. Now, sometimes when people hear all this information, it's like, oh my gosh, when will they stop? It can feel overwhelming, right? I mean, even we've talked about this, it does get overwhelming, especially when you know about it. So, but you said, really, we're so much more powerful than they are. It doesn't even take that much, especially now, right? Because
I agree.
Before we were kind of bound to them, but now we're kind of elevating away from them, right? So maybe you just touch on that before you jump.
Yeah. So in the coming weeks, months, and years, we're all going to learn new ways of doing things. It's going to take time, but manifesting things is not just, everybody thinks, oh, how woo-woo, right? Sometimes they think, well, you're hitting bowls and singing songs and doing things, but that's not what it's all about. But it's really, you can actually change matter right before your eyes. Like people are saying, well, look, we all need med beds so we can feel better. No, you don't. You're a walking med bed. See? You are a walking med bed. Every human on the planet is a walking med bed. You can repair your vessel by making those connections. You just have to learn how to do it. And we're all going to learn, right, in the very near future. The one thing I'm concerned with, right, which is the same thing that Penny Kelly had mentioned, is that ethics are important here. Could you imagine a 12-year-old girl being mad at her boyfriend and poof, he's in another dimension? That could happen. That's real. That really could happen. So we just have to learn to be more sovereign, right? Everyone, hopefully, will be more sovereign. That means we take personal responsibility for the things that we do, right? And apologize when we're wrong. And, there's so many other layers to it, but just in general, I think that once we can establish that, and we're working on it, right, with the assemblies, and there's been a lot of shakeups with that, and we'll go over that with Kelly. Kelly's here to talk about that with us today too, so that we can get a very clear understanding of the way forward and what we need to do. But main thing is that you can do this. And I've seen so many people that are very, at least, maybe they were healers or maybe they were seers or whatever, and this is how it's been going. But they're really putting forward that manifesting, and it's happening like almost instantaneous. It's amazing what you can do. So I've seen it, I've been watching it happen, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing a world where that's just a daily occurrence, right? We don't need money, and we don't need things, and we just want things. You get the things, right? You need tomatoes, you get the tomatoes. All this toiling and all of this stuff, really that was meant to keep us down and hold us back. They used to import humans to other planets to do this there and to create, because they can't do it. So just remember, how amazing you really, really are. Try to stay as positive as possible. Even just a line, or, some people I know have been sitting on phone calls with people dressed in crowns and whatever else, and talking about other people for hours and hours and hours, be it me or Tank or someone, or look at this memo and all this. And that's what they want to do. So they want to manifest more of that in their world. I don't. So we're not going to spend, very much time on those types of things, but we will just explain to you kind of a little bit about what's going on, so you have an understanding as things change and move on. So there's that part of it. Did that kind of answer your question, Mr. Rao?
That was dope, Kim. I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was really good. Yeah. So carry on. To be honest, I don't know how you guys are. I always try to connect with the energy of people, because I'm listening to you, and I know some of these things are so incredible. I've been talking to Kim for 4 years now, and a lot, different times, more than others, right? And it's amazing to me that we'll still be talking about these things, how much more there is to it.
Oh yeah.
And where we are right now, I love this idea of bringing magic back, as we're restoring or recreating a brand new, I guess, version of the people's government, right? Or the people's, and government is just, what we all agree, like these are the limits and bounds of what we decide we can't do, right? Like those are basic things. So I'm just amazed that we're able to define it this way. So it's very important right now. So you started talking about Lion's Gate. Are you going to go into that next?
Well, we talked about it in previous Life Force calls when it was happening. Remember, thank God we made it through. We're past the infraction point. So I just wanted to let you know what that meant, at least a little bit of a diagram, as bad as it is, just so you understand what's happening.